Right, well, that was a failure. The video, because this is a response to the big blue dog. I think that's the correct name. He talked about the use of fuzzy helmet covers as a safety aid in a recent video, and he rides some really nice motorcycles. He's a very experienced guy, he knows what he's talking about. Like myself, he's been riding forever, so you've got to take some cognizance of what he says. So today's ride, just before I carry on in that vein, I'm going to take just a little local trip in the back roads from my house, some nice lanes, possibly going to end up at a little place called Holman's Hill, probably Holman's Hill, because it's a little bit more scenic, and all things come off, so right, stop, fetch. Seems to be embellished. Right. Plus it hasn't got a plug-in thing, has it? So probably that. So you can probably hear this as I'm standing still, eyes are open. So first method failed, second method is not going to work until I get an adapter for a standard 3.5 mil microphone jack. So we are back to square one.
So here we are on the lower slopes of Holman Tor. I'm not going to climb all the way up because it's a hot day. Left my motorcycle stuff there, but this gives you panoramic views of the local area. All the way to clay tips in the east rather. Yes, and on top, pretty much all over Cornwall. So, yeah, I'm going to put this away now and get back to the bike and get home because I'm worried I might have lost my glass.
All line looks straight, so I'm not trying to go down this hill. Should be loud enough. Oh God. Oh. Just a little bit now. Oh, dear. There's space there. Oh. And that, my grandson, is a classic example of a tourist who doesn't understand. And no, I couldn't have got past that.
So in this section I'm going to concentrate on my response to the big blue dog and his position on motorcycle safety, particularly the wearing of furry helmet covers. to reduce the risk of collision with another road user. That other road user would mostly be a car. So I'm going to present my reasons why I think that point of view is flawed. But however, let's start with the positives and the things we do agree on, and then most of them. First of all, he's a very experienced motorcyclist, so am I. We've learned a few things over the way, and I wholeheartedly agree that all the gear all the time is the way to go forward. That no questions asked, it's always gloves, protective coverings, boots, everything, even if it is hot and sticky. Secondly, presentation, how we present ourselves to other road users as motorcyclists, how we behave on the road in terms of do we drive with excessive speed, do we cut up other road users. That's all going to antagonise them. They're going to form a mental picture of us as people who are angry or antisocial, and they may therefore behave accordingly. More of that later on. So it is important to be aware of how other people see us. That being said, I would add a line that sometimes appearances can be deceptive. I mean, you think of somebody like that well-known YouTuber Shade Tree Surgeon, who's on the face of it looks like your average hairy biker, but he's positive towards women bikers, ethnic minorities, doesn't show homophobia, and is thoughtful in many ways. I also know a psychiatrist who rides a big Harley Davidson that looks very impressive, but he's as mild-mannered as they come. So yeah, stereotyping is also something we do need to be aware of. So my own background is I'm a psychiatric nurse. I've had quite a lot of experience in psychological therapies. For example, I'm a CBT therapist, and I've worked in several settings to employ psychological means of changing thoughts and behaviour. So the next thing I'm going to come on to is something that I found recently in a magazine of the British Motorcyclist Federation, which I belong to, and they're a very much safety and legislation focus group for protecting motorcyclists from the excesses of government legislation and helping us to stay safe. They can be seen as a bit staid and boring, but ultimately they do some good work behind the scenes. And this article talked about a new piece of research which demonstrates some of the reasons why a car driver might not see you, and some of the reasons why you might not see a car driver. So it's a bit of both. Now the key point to this is something called circadian vision. So circadian vision, this is all about a processing thing. So the brain, sometimes when you're changing view, switches off your vision for a split second as you move your attention, say, from a nearby object to a further one. So if you were looking at a post box and you switched your attention to a car in the distance, there's a momentary point where you have no input, and that could be the danger time, because as we know, in riding a motorcycle things happen quite fast. So if you were in the process of switching your attention from an oncoming vehicle to one pulling out of a side road, there might be a moment when you can't really see anything. And this also of course applies to the car drivers coming in the opposite direction. And another key point about this piece of research is they did a scientific study pinpointing where people's attention was actually directed, and in many cases it's not where you think it is. So for motorcyclists, they are looking at physical hazards such as potholes and other things which could be detrimental to progress, but not necessarily looking towards areas of threat, i.e. oncoming vehicles. With car drivers it's slightly different, and they have a different set of points where they look at, and I'll put up on screen a couple of slides to sort of demonstrate that. But the essential point there is that perception is about what you're looking for, and if you're looking for certain things and not other things, it doesn't really matter what you're trying to perceive, you just simply won't see them. So I think that in itself says that whether you adorn your motorcycle with extremely loud pipes, or whether you adorn yourself with furry helmet covers or other high-vis items, you know, high-vis waistcoats, all that sort of thing, you're not going to be seen. So that's the sort of science, and I know that what they're trying to do is lobby the vehicle testing agency to see if they can modify motorbike road tests to include more forward observations. So the golden rule from this is observe further beyond. Now this is something that advanced motorcyclists have been doing for years, police motorcyclists, etc. But that may be a deficit that you have, and I might have too. Certainly I'm going to bear that in mind for my own trips out. For example, another thing that I do which can be detrimental, I sometimes leave my indicator on because I'm used to bikes which have self-cancelling ones, and I think this alone can be a hazard, because if you're indicating left and you're actually wanting to go straight on to turn right, that could mislead another motorist or vehicle user, whatever, and you could still end up in trouble simply because of a neglect of looking around you. Again, other things you could do to protect yourself include maintaining your machine, so regular servicing schedules, making sure things like brakes, suspension, chain, mirrors are all at optimum level, so the machine does what you want when you want it to. Secondly, maintaining yourself in good health, so seeing things, as vision is ultra important here, hearing also, but also got the right layers of clothes on, so if you're in cool conditions, getting cold, hypothermic can seriously slow down reaction times, are also factors in maintaining safety. So for example, on my bike I've got heated grips. They allow me to ride safely in conditions which are a bit cooler than I would normally do. So some modifications can be helpful, you know, maybe even a more comfortable seat might allow you to concentrate better for long distances. As we all know, accidents happen when you're just about to get home and your concentration levels are failing, possibly because of discomfort. So all those things are things you can do yourself to protect yourselves. So I think that's most of the things that you can do, but I think one last point on this would be in a what they might call the zone. I think you Americans often call it seat time, where you're in that mental zone of being relaxed but alert. So you're perceiving hazards as they arise, but you're not overly scanning for them and maybe looking in the wrong places. So that's things you can do for yourself. Let's talk about the psychological issues now. So, rustling of paper which I'm reading. So the reason why psychologically people might not see you even when you're there, even if you've got loud pipes, even if you're wearing a furry helmet cover, is all about something called ABC. And in psychological terms, that's antecedents, beliefs and consequences, which is at the heart of a therapy called CBT. And in the case of loud pipes, which I think is the same for furry helmet covers, it's about maybe the antecedents would be hearing somebody else say, oh, my loud pipes help save lives, and somebody else in the motorcycle club says that, and you hear it someone else, and you think, well, that must make sense, you know, because they're all saying it. So that forms the belief that you have that loud pipes save life, and the consequence is you then put on a pair of loud pipes. But actually, how do you test that assumption? Because you've made an assumption that they do save lives. What are the accident statistics? And actually, I think they're pretty poor for things like that. So, I think that if you like, in the hard, cold, real world light of day, you're not going to be able to support that assertion. And that's down to your attributional bias. In other words, what you're looking for is in the wrong places, looking for evidence that doesn't really exist. And that is what we call a vicious cycle. keeps on going round and round, but what you need to do is test that assumption with a real world experiment. And of course that's quite difficult to do. And I think the same set of rules applies to wearing furry helmet covers. You might believe it alerts other people and they smile and they accordingly are going to behave better towards you, but are they really? What is the actual evidence of that? And I think there actually isn't any, as far as I can tell. Certainly no accident statistics I can think of that include an analysis of what people are wearing as to the likelihood of impact. That's probably something that can be very difficult to do. So my final conclusion really is that it's not how you sound, it's not how you look that keeps you safe, it's what you do. So I hope that makes sense, and it's not a complete reversal of what the big blue dog says, but hopefully you might get people to think, as in, what are my beliefs? Are they actually founded on evidence and fact, or are they founded on assumptions which maybe you've heard from a third party that you choose to believe that isn't verifiable in the real world outside? Now, I won't stop anybody wearing a furry helmet cover. Personally, they give me the shivers when I see them, and I also think it's kind of like is presenting an image of motorcycling which doesn't seem to me to fit. Certainly I'm not a hardcore biker in any way. I've been riding forever, but I've never been a biker per se. Bikers are those people with you know, those cut-off waistcoats and leather jeans, long beards and back patches. That's a whole different subject. Maybe I might put my thoughts on back patches and clubs and what tends to happen in any kind of club for another day. But by regards to the big blue dog, he's clearly a great bloke. He's well sorted. Motorcycles are excellent. You know, he clearly knows what he's talking about, and I just wanted to sort of maybe challenge that belief. And also the evidence scientifically tends to suggest that it's the car driver is not going to be seeing you no matter what you're wearing or sounding. Okay, enough from me for now. I'm just about home on this trip. You may or may not be able to hear what's going on in the background. I'll try to bleep out any obscenities I mouth at drivers, because it's tourist season in Cornwall, and the place is full of people who aren't used to the conditions of our roads, which are very narrow, very bumpy, and quite difficult to navigate, which makes riding a bit more stressful than it should be, really. However, I can still find a quiet road when I try, and it's still a beautiful place to live. So if you ever want to come over to this part of the world, Mr. Big Blue Dog, I don't know what your real name is, but if you do, hit us up. We'll find somewhere good for a beer and a coffee and a chat. So, signing off now. Regards to all, and hope this all helps get people thinking.